They say that truth is stranger than fiction. In no case is this more apparent than the Bell Witch. A spirit by the name of Kate haunted the Bell family from 1817 to 1821.
This most famous of all Tennessee paranormal cases has already been popularized by many television specials, films, and books, but we can't leave it out here because of the uniqueness of the case.
And what makes this especially unique in American history? It is the only documented case in which a spirit has been solely responsible for the death of a human being. Even today, over 150 years after she first appeared in Robertson County, Kate continues to hold some people in the town of Adams in a state of intimidation. Officially, the Bell Witch haunting is over, but considering all of the eerie things that happen in and around Adams, there is a strong reason to believe that Kate is still afoot and that she continues to torment the living.
When the Bell Witch first entered the lives of John Bell and his family, Robertson County was still a wilderness. Log cabin farmhouses, rivers, and mysterious limestone caverns were abundant. Some believe that all of the subterranean cave-forming activity is responsible for most of the puzzling incidents above ground. But some events cannot be explained away so easily.
In 1804, when John Bell was 54 years old, he, his wife, and his 5 children arrived in Robertson County from North Carolina. John settled 1,000 acres of land, erecting a double, 1.5-story log cabin for his family, cabins for his slaves, and various outbuildings. He would farm peacefully over a dozen years, fathering 3 more children and growing prosperous. In 1817, his contentment would come to an end when Kate came to call. Neither the Bell family or Robertson County would ever be the same again.
Some would say that John Bell and his family had made up the spirit fantasy in their minds. But Bell was very conscious of his place in the community, and he was proud of the respectability he could command from his family and his friends.
John Bell would do nothing that would make him appear foolish in the eyes of others, and that included making any claim that his home was haunted.
The haunting first began while John was hunting on the north section of his land. He noticed something that looked like a wild stray dog, but not like any canine he had ever seen before. Bell took aim and fired. When the smoke cleared away, the dog had mysteriously disappeared.
About the same time, his daughter Betsy and son Drury were walking through the family orchard when they noticed a strange woman suddenly walking beside them. When Betsy turned to speak to her, the woman disappeared into thin air.
That night, strange sounds echoed through the Bell house. Knocking on doors and windows, wings flapping on the roof, scratching from inside the walls, and the vicious sounds of animals fighting. These sounds would continue night after night, increasing in intensity for a year.
John Bell, at first, thought the disturbances might be caused by minor earthquakes or cavern-forming activity, but Bell soon grew suspicious that it might be vandals up to mischief, trying to harass the family.
You see, John Bell was no angel in the community.
He was a hard-nosed businessman who turned a profit whenever he could. He had been accused by his own church of usury in a slave deal with a local planter, Benjamin Batts, and his wife, Kate. The church had acquitted him of the charge, but the state of Tennessee had proven itself not so open-minded.
In August of 1817, a jury in Robertson County Circuit Court convicted Bell of the same charge. The conviction led the church's hierarchy to reconsider their decision, and John Bell was expelled.
All attempts by John to capture the possible culprits and vandals failed, and the noise increased to such an intensity that it shook the sturdy log house. Most of the time, the noises seemed to center around Betsy, who was about 12 years old at the time. The sounds would even follow her from place to place. It was not only the noises that tortured Betsy, though. The spirit, on many occasions, would pull Betsy out of bed by her hair, dragging her through the house and slapping her violently, leaving bruises and red welts where the invisible hands had struck her.
So it was about a year after the noises started at the Bell farm that John Bell became afflicted by something. It was some type of nervous disorder. It affected the way that he swallowed, the way that he talked. His jaw would lock up. and the doctors couldn't quite figure out what it was. So they kind of attributed the affliction to the witch or the spirit, the ghost, whatever it happened to be, that was there. Things got so bad and so crazy around there that John decided he needed some help. So he asked a friend, James Johnson, and his wife to come over. And they came over and stayed the night, and while they were there, they experienced the sounds of lips smacking and chairs overturning and scratches on the roof and across the walls. And that night, while they were sleeping, James Johnson actually fought over the covers. The covers were ripped from his bed, and he fought over the covers with whatever spirit was there. So the next morning, of course, James Johnson and his wife wanted to get out and had no idea how to help John Bell and his family. So it kind of left him to find other ways to get help.
Before long, a new wrinkle was added. The spirit found a voice. The first intelligible sound from the spirit, other than hysterical laughter, was the repeating of a prayer that had been recited by John Johnson, a family friend, during his first night in the Bell house. It was repeated in Johnson's own voice. Apparently, the witch was quite taken with Johnson's theological eloquence, because after that night, she referred to him affectionately as Old Sugar Lips.
After that, the witch never shut her mouth again. She liked to argue theology with all comers. No preacher in the vicinity ever had a chance in a debate against her. One mistaken sermon or one misquote in scripture would result in a severe dressing down. The spirit attended church regularly and proved it by repeating the sermons, prayers, and even the hymns word for word.
The Bell Witch was eventually asked to identify herself. She claimed that she was the spirit of an Indian whose grave had been disturbed, stating, "I am a spirit of a person who is buried in the woods nearby. My bones have been scattered, and I am made unhappy." One time she identified herself as a spirit conjured up by Kate Batts, the woman who had previously accused John Bell of usury, in order to get revenge, prompting the Bell family to name the witch Old Kate.
Another time she answered, "I am the spirit of an early immigrant who brought a large sum of money. I buried my treasure for safekeeping until needed. I have returned because I want Betsy Bell to have the money." She gave a precise description of where the treasure was buried, and after several sweaty hours of digging up nothing but dirt and rock by Drury Bell and James Johnson, Kate had a great laugh and gleefully chided the men for being so gullible as to believe her.
The witch had a large playful streak, but she had made it clear from the very beginning that her evil intentions were to kill John Bell. Kate even admitted to being the cause of John Bell's physical disorder that affected him earlier on. Whenever John's name was mentioned in the presence of the witch, she erupted with a volley of verbal abuse against him, calling him every vile name in the book.
Periodically, Bell was seized by body contortions and facial twitching, which lasted 1 or 2 days. This caused him to take to his bed, unable to work. All the time he lay there, the witch raved and ranted around the house, giving him little peace. Not one time did the witch mention a specific reason why she had it in for him.
No one could understand why such violent attacks continued on young Betsy Bell either, although there have been a few controversial theories based on the family writings. Kate repeatedly slapped, struck, and pinched her with such force that Betsy would scream in agony. Betsy could not escape this abuse. If any attempt was made to stop the torture, the would-be hero would receive a beating from Kate too.
So a lot of people wonder why the attacks were directed towards Betsy so much, why she was the one that got slapped around and beaten, pulled out of the bed, that kind of thing. And there are a lot of theories. One of the more controversial theories that the Bell family is not very happy about is that it's believed that people can use psychokinetic energy if they've experienced a traumatic event of some type to manifest spirits or call spirits or even create spirits. And it's believed that John Bell was possibly sexually abusing his daughter Betsy and pulling her out of the bed, slapping her around, that kind of thing. And this spirit was there to do the same things to Betsy while other people were watching, in hopes that people would notice that this was going on. It's also believed that that's why a lot of the afflictions and things directed towards John, the bad things that happened to John, a lot of people think that that's why they happened, is that the spirit or entity or whatever it was could not get anyone's attention enough, so it went ahead and turned its focus on him.
More and more word of the strange events spread. Newspapers printed accounts, and it soon seemed that everyone in America wanted to experience the haunting, including the soon-to-be president, General Andrew Jackson. When Jackson and his party of friends visited the Bell home, he was so unnerved by the experience that on his return to Nashville, he remarked to all who would listen, "I'd rather fight the entire British Army than to deal with this torment they call the Bell Witch."
By the beginning of the 4th year of the haunting, nearly everyone in Tennessee, Kentucky, and beyond knew about the strange occurrences at the Bell residence.
People would come from miles around to set up camp on the Bell's lawn, waiting for the arrival of the witch. At these times, Kate acted like both an enlightened philosopher and an extremely cruel child, alternately frightening and friendly. Kate was proving to be a very complex entity, displaying intensely human moods, desires, and thoughts. Even as she terrorized the visitors and the Bell family, she showed desire to receive love, acceptance, and happiness.
By 1820, John was suffering more and more at the hands of the witch. His twitching, tics, contortions, and stiffness of the tongue became more frequent and severe, while periods of recovery became more infrequent. On December 19th, John Jr. and Drury found their father unconscious. After all efforts to arouse him failed, Dr. George Hobson arrived asking, "What kind of medicine have you been giving him?" John Jr. replied that his father had actually been taking 3 medicines. He went to the cupboard to get them, but when he opened the door, he found not the 3 familiar medicine bottles, but a single container holding a strange brown liquid. Roaring with laughter, the witch replied, "He will never get up. I gave the dose to him. Now he will die."
John Bell never regained consciousness.
All day long, he lay in a stupor while the witch taunted him, laughing hysterically and singing derisive songs at the top of her voice. The next morning, John Bell died, and old Kate mysteriously stopped talking.
Today, Adams, Tennessee lies about 10 miles northwest of Springfield on Highway 41. When the I-24 interstate was built several years ago, Adams was cut off from the rest of the world, leaving only a few stores and gas stations open for business.
Locals believe that old Kate is still active in Robertson County. In fact, many are able to point to specific instances that substantiate their case, including cars being flipped over on the road, failed electronic devices, important items mysteriously disappearing, strange ghostly lights in the sky, ghostly figures appearing in the photographs, and even accidents and fires.
They also claim that bad luck always falls on visitors and residents, who say there's no such thing as the Bell Witch.
I went up there to the old schoolhouse and they were putting on the play, the Bell Witch Cave play. And we were sitting there watching it, and at the climax of the play, the lights just go out. I mean, they're gone. Not a cloud in the sky, you know? So, I mean, who knows? It might have been a power outage, but it still makes people go like, wow, that's a little creepy, you know?
Right here in Tennessee, we have the history of the Bell Witch, and that's up in Adams, Tennessee. And I've always been told you don't mess with that, and if you say you don't believe in the Bell Witch, something bad will happen to you. When I was a little girl, my dad went, "I don't believe in the Bell Witch," and I was scared to death that something bad was going to happen to my dad. He broke out in pityriasis all the next day, so it's true. You better believe in the Bell Witch.
Do you believe in her?